Well, Jim Moore obviously was a big influence because he was the first guy I was with. And I was with him 14 seasons where he was the head coach and I was an assistant. So he had a major influence, but I don't think any one guy can influence any one coach totally. You have to just be yourself. And I think coaches have run into problems trying to be somebody else. And I'm not good at that. So I'm just going to be myself and, lean on things I've learned.
Have you watched, you evaluated this team last year? How much do you form an opinion of a player, or do you want to wait till you see them in your system in person on the field?
In our system, in person on the field, by a long shot. I surprised John in the interview when I said it, and it's held true. I mean, I have watched very little of the Denver Broncos from the 2018 season. Very little. I bet you under 150 plays. And the only guys I've watched is guys we've had to make decisions on. But if the guy's on our roster, and he's going to be on our roster, I want to form my own opinion. I don't want to watch other stuff.
How would you compare the inside linebackers, the top two, Devin White and Devin Bush, to the guy you drafted last year, Roquan Smith?
I don't think either one is as good as Roquan at this stage in their career.
Why?
Roquan's a special player and a special individual, and so it's going to take a while for me to see that in those other two guys.
When you studied Roquan last year, what made him special?
He's just a very, really good football player. He's fast. He's instinctive. He loves the game. And you can see it on tape, There's a few guys that when you watch tape, you can see all that. Not a lot. And he just made a lot of plays and very productive player. Came from a good program in Georgia, it's just a sense. I can't give you a black and white. There's not a list of boxes you got to check. I'm not a box checker guy. I just watch him play.
Follow up on Devin White. He's been a blitzer. He can cover. Is it a pretty rare skill set for him that he can help teams in different ways depending on the down and situation?
Yeah, I think he's a guy that could stay on the field and play all situations. The NFL has changed so much in the last few years. In Chicago last year, we saw over 80%. We went against three wide receivers or more. 80% of our plays, there was three wide receivers or more on the field. And that's not counting the tight end, two tight end packages where one of them's really a receiver. So the thought process that a guy's a first and second down player and not a third down player, you're defending third down stuff on first and second down too. So I think that's a thing of the past. To say a guy is a one down player, two down player, I don't like to look at things that way anymore.
Was 80% a high water for you?
It probably was, and it was the most in the league, and we had the most in the league the previous season. But even the lowest teams are in the mid-50s. So as a league average, it's probably in the high 60s.
Why did you face so much great receivers?
That's a good question. You need to go around to these offensive coaches and ask them that question.
play for.
difficult position to evaluate?
What's that?
What's the most difficult position to evaluate players coming out of the draft?
I think they're all have their own little difficult parts to it. Probably quarterback is the most difficult only because it's the most visible. Everybody thinks they're a quarterback expert, and it's the hardest position to play, and it's the most important position to play. It's the most important position to play in all sports, not just football. And it's the most difficult position to play in all of sports, not just football. So that's probably the most.
With the spread game in college now in the tight end position, how tough is it to project whether you can teach a guy to block?
There's projection involved, obviously, but it comes down to traits. Does the guy have the physical traits to do it? And if he does he have the mental makeup to do it? And then if you can feel comfortable about those two things, then you ought to be able to get it out of them.
Do you teach a guy to tackle? Remember you say that's non-negotiable? Do you teach that?
Yes.
With the move you made during free agency, how much is versatility important to you in the secondary?
It is important. Now, having said that, that doesn't mean you hold it against a good player that can only play one position. So, but it's very important to have versatility in the secondary. In lieu of what I just told you about the three wide receivers on the field, you're going to be playing a lot of DBs. That's just, there's 5 starters in the secondary. And versatility is important. But if a guy's only a right corner and he's really good at it, we want him too. So, but you do need to have some versatility.
So week to week, guys could be moving all around.
Absolutely.
Are you evaluating quarterbacks for, you're picking number 10? That's often a spot where you look at quarterbacks. Have you been evaluating the 10 top guys?
Absolutely. I mean, first thing I said to a lot of coaches, I said, now I get to evaluate quarterbacks. And I won't make the same mistakes some of you offensive coaches have made over the years.
Okay. What do you think of can you speak on the top 10 Haskins, Locke?
I haven't done a lot yet. I'm saving them to when we go back. I have not watched them a whole lot yet to comment.
Well, when you're looking at young quarterbacks and you were around one the last couple of years in Chicago, what stands out to you? What are you looking at?
Well, good quarterbacks come in all shapes and sizes and styles and personalities, as you guys know from covering the league. We're looking for a guy that can produce. Obviously he's got to have some type of minimal arm strength. He's got to have some type of minimal athletic ability. He's got to have leadership intangibles. He's got to be an accurate passer. Can he throw from the pocket under duress? Does he have escapability? Guys make it work all different ways. And then you have to look, does their skill set fit to do what you want to do, or can you adapt to what they do well, and do you have the guys on hand that could play that adapted system?
What'd you think of Kyler Murray? From afar?
Yeah, the only thing I've seen of him is what little I saw on TV up to this point, and obviously he's a special athlete, dynamic player, fast, elusive, can throw. This guy can throw, obviously. That jumps out at you easily from TV scouting. And I think he's going to be a good player in this league. He'll be a success as a quarterback.
You decided to tender Shelby Harris at a second-round level. What kind of fit do you think he could be in your scheme?
I think he could play anywhere along the defensive line for us, hopefully. I think D linemen are interchangeable. I think the days of a nose tackle and end, to me, they're all tackles. They play from lining up on this tackle all the way to that tackle and anywhere in between. And they all have to react to the same type of blocking schemes, play the same type of blocks, be able to pass rush. So, to me, there's defensive linemen, period, end of story.
I know there's been a lot of talk about inside backers. Do feel like there's something missing from your inside back between Joseph Jewell and Todd Davis? Is there like a skill set that's not there that you want to find?
No, I like those guys, what little I've seen of them, and I haven't seen a lot. I've actually saw more of Josie as a college player. That's more fresh in my mind because I watched him last year. And I like those guys.
Picking players in the draft that fit your scheme, working together with John. How much is going to play a role in the evaluation process?
There'll be a role. When we go back, the next 4 weeks, I guess it is, or whatever, between once we get back and the draft, we're going to be spending a lot of time together in the draft room, evaluating position by position with the coaches, with the scouts, and all that work will be done moving forward. It hadn't happened yet.
When you're watching draft guys, linebackers, something you've coached forever, does it take less time to come to a conclusion on them than other positions, offense or defense?
I think obviously I'm graded a lot of defensive players over the years, and being a coordinator for a long time, I've looked at all the defensive positions. So obviously I feel more at done it, been there, done that type of thing. With the offensive players, I've done a few so far, and it's the same thing. I just watch them play, and is what I'm seeing is it transferable to the NFL.
It's an unusual ownership situation that the Broncos have. Did you ask questions about that or have any concerns, when you took the job here?
No, I didn't have any concerns, and I didn't have to ask questions because they explained it to me right off the bat because they knew I probably would have questions. So, and everything I've heard from people around the league before I interviewed or took the job, and what John and Joe Ellis have told me since, it's all been the same. So I think the narrative that's out there is accurate, and I'm not concerned about it.
At the combine, you got to spend 15 minutes with whatever 60 kids. You need to bring 30 guys in. John said you're bringing in the top 4 QBs. How much do you look forward to more time having the guys in your building? How much does that help in the past?
I think it helps. I think it's more of, with every guy, it's a little bit different. Some guys you're bringing in just to get a little better feel for. Some guys you're bringing in, you feel like you got a lot of questions you want to ask and get answered. So it's a different degree. And some of those guys you bring in, you're just bringing in as a smokescreen. So I wouldn't get too enamored with who we're bringing in or who the 31 other teams are bringing in. It could mean something, it might not mean something. But I think guys try and read the tea leaves of a draft, drive themselves crazy.
When you get a chance to talk to these players firsthand, what are you looking for in terms of their personality that can transfer to the NFL?
Personalities are, a wide variety of successful personalities in the NFL. And you're just trying to see the guy's personality come out and maybe compare it to somebody you've coached along the ways. And obviously coaching a long time like I have a vast library of guys that I've coached that have been successful. And do I see some traits or personality traits of guys that I've coached in the past that have been successful or have not been successful?
Looking around the AFC West, can you kind of give us a quick thumbnail breakdown of your 3 opponents and how you see the division?
Well, obviously, it start off, we've got 3 very high-level quarterbacks with the other 3 teams. Everybody knows Mahomes and seeing what he's capable of doing. Phillip Rivers, is still going strong, and I don't see him slowing down, and I don't see him not playing for a few years. And he's just, to me, he's a quarterback. And it goes back to our initial question here. Mahomes and Rivers, 2 very different skill sets, but 2 very successful quarterbacks. So they come in all shapes and sizes, and and forms. And Derek Carr out in Oakland is a great quarterback, great arm talent, can make every throw in the book. An elusive quarterback. He's got scrambling ability, and he's a really good quarterback who has already displayed his success. He led Oakland to a 12-4 season not too long ago, and and Oakland, I think, took it on the chin last year by design. They've stockpiled some draft picks, saved some money, and they've been very active in free agency. They've got a bunch of draft picks now, and they're going to make a big move from last year to this year. It's gotten to the point, because the game is so spread out, like I alluded to earlier, they're all important. And I know that sounds like a boring answer, but you used to be able to have a couple positions on defense where guys could overachieve. Maybe they weren't the most talented players, but they were overachievers. And those positions have kind of disappeared because the game is spread out. So they're all important. If you have a hole somewhere, they're going to find it. The offenses, because they're spread out, can isolate more players than they used to be able to. But obviously, corner is a very important position, because when that ball goes up in the air deep, it's him or the receiver many times. Pass rusher to affect the quarterback is important. But playing good run defense is important, because although run defense some people think is less important than it used to be, it is until you're bad. And then if you can't stop the run, you're just going to get it a lot. So you've got to be really good on defense from a talent standpoint. It's easier to have overachiever players on offense nowadays than it used to be, where it used to be on defense.
Vic, I asked you on Sunday about finally being here. You've been here for a couple of days. You've sat in meetings, I'm sure, like some, probably bored by some. Did you think you'd get here? And now that you're here, I imagine, do you feel like you belong?
Oh, yeah. Sure, I belong. I have no qualms about that. But, a lot of these guys that are already in the room, I've been coaching against for a long time, and some longer than others. So, it's no big deal.
Bradley Chubb going year 1 to year 2. What does his skill set provide in terms of moving him around, and maybe if you want to rush him and Bond from the same side?
Oh, sure, that's a possibility. And again, Chubb's another guy where my knowledge and background of him is more from last year's draft than his 2018 season. He was a guy that we were interested in last year in the draft, so I did a lot of work on him, and I'm excited about coaching him. I think he's obviously got the ability to play on the edge of our defense, but I also think I'll be interested to see how much we can move him around and if it fits what we want to do in that regards, and I think he can.
You have mixed feelings about your team's 4th and 15 from the 35 in lieu of the onside kick rule, being a defensive guy?
No. I like the rule. I like it better now that it's been trimmed down. You can only do it once a game. You can only do it in the fourth quarter. So I like that part of the rule. To me, that's might be the part that gets it passed. I have no idea whether it will or not. But when they trimmed it down, I like that.
What's your feeling on expanding instant replay?
Well, that's what a lot of these discussions have been about. The meetings I've been in the last couple of days, and the whole crux of the matter is, do you want to expand instant replay to have an official or in the booth, a replay official in the booth, or somebody that has the power to throw a flag on the field? Or do you want to just be able to instant replay flags that have been thrown already? So you got to decide what side of the fence you're on there, and then go from there. And everybody's reluctant, I think, as a general statement, to give somebody the ability that's not on the field to throw a flag. But then everybody brings up the New Orleans play, obviously. And if nobody has the ability to throw a flag, then that play doesn't get changed. So, but you got to decide whether you want somebody that's not on the field have the ability to throw a flag. And if you do, then there's a lot of things you can do. If you don't want that, then the change will be minimal.
What side of the fence are you on?
I would like to have somebody have that ability, but I don't think people have thought about it enough thoroughly, surprisingly so, to come to that conclusion yet. And I think part of the reason people haven't thought about it enough is they're not sure if it can pass ownership. Because ultimately it doesn't matter what coaches think, it doesn't matter what general managers think, it doesn't matter what the competition committee thinks. You got to get 24 votes to pass anything, or 9 votes to stop anything. So it'll be interesting. I personally don't think there's enough consensus right now to throw a flag on the field.
Do you have a thought on how you're going to throw the challenge flag?
My style, my technique? No, that will be in the moment.
What about which pocket? Is he going to go sock, pocket?
I don't know. I haven't thought about that either. I might have to have somebody hold it so I don't throw it too much.
When you get the chance to run practices when you're starting in a few weeks, how much emphasis are you going to place on high leverage situations, 3rd and 8, 2 minutes, red zone type of stuff compared to other environments?
It will be a major part. It won't be a major part early, because we want to teach our systems first. So we're going to stress teaching our systems first, and then once we feel comfortable there, then we will do a lot of work in those areas.
Being around Munchak for a couple of months now, what kind of insight does he provide on a daily basis?
Great insight. Obviously, he's a master of O-line play, not only from playing it at a high level, but from coaching it at a high level. So he's got that rare combination of ex-player, high-level player, and coaching at a high level. And he's been a head coach for 3 years, so he's got perspective that way. Involved in some really good offenses, different offenses over the years. So he's a tremendous resource.
You're pretty, got to know Matt, the Cubs manager, over the last few years. You guys talk about things you have in common as far as leading a clubhouse, leading a locker room?
A little bit, but not in depth. But Joe's a big football fan, so he's very interested in football. Joe played a little bit of college football at Lafayette, and I remember going to see a Cubs game one day, and I was supposed to meet him there on the field, and he was late coming out. It was because he was watching Lafayette, his college. He had streamed the game in on his computer, and he was watching the end of it. So he's a big college football fan. Football fan, period.
Yeah, because that Al's in the okay.
Jeez, you're doing your research.
Wait, so you got Cubs fans, you got North Carolina fans.
Well, I really enjoyed my one season there. We had a good team. We were, I believe after 7 games, we were undefeated and I believe ranked 4th in the country. It looked like back then there weren't many bowl games and looked like there'd be a chance we might be playing for the national championship. But then we had a bad finish, lost 3 of the last 4 games. So that never materialized. Great friends. I had coaches on that staff that I have became lifelong friends with, some that are been in the NFL, some not. Became a Tar Heel fan, basketball-wise. The year I was there was Michael Jordan's last year, and so I went to see all his games. His last year at Carolina, which was the last year they played before they moved to the Dean Dome. So that was special. I knew what was coming with Michael Jordan. I just really liked it there and enjoyed my time. You know, this is one of the first, I think it's the first year that I can remember I haven't filled out a bracket. But I probably would have.
Speaking of we're talking other sports and basketball, you were at a Nuggets game. I know you may have secretly, at least that night, been pulling for your pal Brett Brown and the Sixers, but you're around town. Also, the Nuggets, now by making the playoffs, make the Broncos the team in town with the unfortunately longest streak of not being in the playoffs. So kind of take us through your time in town, the Nuggets, and then kind of added pressure.
Oh, I don't feel any pressure because I haven't been here for that streak. But I like sports. I like watching people compete. I like watching them compete at the high level of the pro sports. I think the Nuggets have a great team. I love their player, Jokic. Anytime your best player is your hardest worker and most unselfish player, you got something special, and that's what they have. I don't know much about the Rockies right now, but I'll start following them.
Coach, we're going to do a quick one with
All right,
John
guys.
Clayton on radio.
Wait, you're letting him squeeze out these guys? Oh,
No, we get to go back to our Super Bowl together.
that's right.
Okay, John.
Hey, that was Patrick that did that. I didn't do that to you guys.
Coach, I'm going to give you this mic real quick.
Ready?
Yep.
Yeah.
Joining us on late, it's Vic Fangio. So Vic, I was with you at the Super Bowl. San Francisco, Baltimore is the pool reporter. We had a great week together. Been waiting you to get the head coaching job, and you got it. And not only did you get that, you went against the quarterback you played against, Joe Flacco.
Yeah, I've known Joe for a while. I was obviously in Baltimore his first 2 years in the league and got to know him some there. And then obviously coaching against him. I haven't coached against him a ton. Obviously the Super Bowl, and then we played Baltimore once while I was in Chicago. So, I think I've only coached against Joe 3 or 4 times total. But I like Joe. I think Joe's a good football player, good quarterback, been productive, been a winner. I like his personality. I think he'll be a good fit for us.
You've been waiting for this opportunity to be a head coach. Did you think it was not going to happen?
I never gave it much thought one way or the other. I was very happy being a defensive coordinator in the NFL, especially with Chicago the past 4 years. And we finally had gotten that thing to where we were good. So I would have been fine staying there too. I didn't stress about becoming a head coach. I'm glad it happened. I'm thrilled to be in Denver. Every day I'm happier than I was the day before being there. So it's been great.
Talk about what you did in Chicago to make that defense so good.
Well, it was a process. When we first got there, they weren't very good. In fact, they were terrible. It took a while. The first year we got 2 players. We drafted Eddie Goldman in the 2nd round and Adrian Amos in the 5th round. Then the next year we added Leonard Floyd and Akeem Hicks and Danny Trevathan. And then year 3 we added Eddie Jackson, Prince Mukamara. And then this past year we added, obviously, Roquan in the draft and Khalil with the trade right before the opener. So it took a while, but we became very good. It was a slow building process. And when we got players like Roquan and Khalil at the end there, it put us over the top.
So where do you look at the Denver defense right now and the plans to make it better?
Well, it's in a better spot than when we first took over Chicago, that's for sure. We have good players on our edge in Chubb and Von Miller, obviously. We have a safety we like in Simmons. We still have Chris Harris, who's a good corner / nickelback. And we've been able to add a couple guys through free agency. So we're in a lot better shape in Denver than we were when we first started in Chicago. But we still have work to do both in improving our roster and improving our play.
I know when I saw you briefly at the Combine, I said, you being the assistant head coach of the year, I
said, I think you may have hired this year's assistant head coach of the year, Mike Munchak. Talk about how that happened and how much a good offensive line coach can mean to a turnover.
Well, I think if you can hire a guy of Mike's quality at any position, let alone offensive line, you're better off for it. And Mike's a great coach, has proven that over the years with his work with the offensive line, wherever he's been, whether it be Tennessee or Pittsburgh. And, the stars just aligned. Mike was available. He was no longer under contract with Pittsburgh. We were looking for an offensive line coach. Mike had already known some things about the Denver situation, having looked at that. And Mike and I are from the same hometown. Mike and I grew up about 2.5 miles apart, our homes. We didn't know each other. We went to different high schools, but we played against each other and knew of each other, but weren't highly friendly. We knew each other and say hello over the years when our paths would cross. So, but the ultimate thing is Mike's daughter lives in Denver, and so I think I could say it was 80% his daughter got him to come to Denver, and 20% we got him to come to Broncos. So, but we're thrilled to have Mike. He adds a lot to our staff and to our program with great O-line play, and his insight of being a head coach for 3 years, and he's coached and played in a lot of different offenses. So he's already been a tremendous asset to us, and once the players get here, believe me, that will multiply.
You bring up staff. I think that was the most intriguing thing about your hire in Denver and Bruce Arians' hire in Tampa Bay. A lot of young offensive coaches were getting jobs. The great thing about what you did and what Bruce did was hire great staff. I thought those two staffs are the best of the 8 coaching staffs.
Yeah, I felt very fortunate when we were putting the staff together. First off, there was a bunch of good coaches that were already there. We kept 2 on offense, 2 on defense, and the special teams. So that was good. And then all the other guys that we had to go out and hire, we got our first choices. We didn't have to settle for anybody, and weren't struggling to find somebody for certain jobs. And once that happened, I felt fortunate, luckily, but it also told us that people want to come to Denver and work both as a coach and a player.
And then finally, the challenge now in the AFC West. Coming up with defensive plans for Phillip Rivers, and then also coming up with a rising quarterback, Patrick Mahomes.
And Derek Carr. Yeah. No, it's definitely a very talented division from the quarterback position. Obviously everybody knows what Mahomes did this past year. Phillip Rivers has been doing it forever. And Derek Carr, just a season or 2 ago, had the Raiders at 12-4. So we've got 3 proven quarterbacks. One very young, one in the middle of his career, and one, I don't want to say the end of his career because I don't see the end coming for Rivers, but a veteran quarterback.
Congratulations. It's great to have you as a head coach.
Well, thank you, John. I appreciate it.
By the way, I covered Munchak 1 year at Penn State.
Oh, yeah.
The Pittsburgh Press.
That's right.
Yeah.
Thanks, Coach.
All right.
That was before Paterno kicked me off the beat for breaking too many stories.
True story, though.
Yeah.
Coach, having been in the Hall of Fame game last year, you have more training camp. That helped you as far as setting the plan? Is the challenge keeping guys fresh?
No. The new CBA they put in a few years ago has kept guys fresh. Training camp's nothing like it used to be. So all it is an extra week. And when you break it down even more so, maybe an extra 4 or 5 really good practices, which we can use. So I'm excited to have the Hall of Fame game, both from the 2019 Broncos perspective, but also excited to be there because Pat Bowlen and Champ Bailey are going in, and I think it's a natural for us to play in the game.
You're playing in the game. Are you going to stay with the team and practice there one day and then watch the ceremony?
I believe that's totally been decided. It's been talked about. So I'm not sure yet. There will be some form of presence there for the ceremony from the current team. I just don't know exactly what it will look like yet.
You've been a part of some successful turnarounds and projects in San Francisco, Chicago, even though in Carolina. What are the common
Well, there were better players there than people thought there was. So that's obviously a good starting point. I think in all those places we put together good coaching staffs, which always helps. And once you get a pretty good core group of players and a good coaching staff together, you can turn things around quickly. It didn't go as quickly in Chicago because there weren't many good players there when we got there. So it took a while.
In Denver, do you feel like maybe this team does have better players?
I think so at certain places I do. I think offensively, we have a chance to be better than people think we do. And I think the players are better on offense than the perception was when I first got there.
When you look at this year, that's the one concern. Your one veteran's coming off Achilles, and then you had the two rookies last year that kind of faded in the final month there. Do you need some reinforcements there, or do you think they're ready the kids to step up a little?
Well, they better be ready to step up. I mean, we're counting on them. You always need reinforcements. Like I said, it's a league of receivers and DBs right now, so there's always room for improvement and to add to those groups. So you never have enough of them. But I like where we're at receivers, and I think our line's better than people think it is. And I like to think that if we're right with Joe Flacco, he'll have a hand in making those guys look better too.
Well, speaking of Flacco, you were with him early in his career. I believe coached against him in a Super Bowl, and now you catch him certainly towards the tail end of his career. I don't know how much is left, but I guess, can you predict that? How much do you think is left?
I think there's a lot left with Joe. Joe's got an athletic body. I don't think he's got a body that will slowly break down. Now, that's not to say he can't get injured, but some bodies last longer naturally than others, and I think he's got a body that can last a long time. He throws the ball with ease, meaning it's just natural. There's not a lot of torque. So I think his arm strength has not wavered one bit since he came in the league. And he's hungry. Joe wants to do good. I think a lot of players, they lose their stinger before they lose their talent. And Joe's stinger is still sharp.
These attributes, not just the arm, but like you say, the stick of these evidence, we had a chance to see him in Baltimore that game.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, when we first got him, it was during OTAs of his rookie year. And John Harbaugh was a rookie head coach at that time. And he had just come from Philadelphia with Andy Reid, who had Donovan McNabb at that time. And Andy rode Donovan for a long time. They won a bunch of playoff games, got to Super Bowl, never won the Super Bowl, but they had a nice run there. And I walked over to John Harbaugh. I said, I think you got your guy here that you're going to be able to ride for a long time, just like Andy rode Donovan McNabb. So, I mean, I noticed it early.
On the other side of the ball, when you came in, you mentioned Von Miller can get to another level, and Von seems to be embracing that idea. You talked a little earlier about Chubb and how excited you are to have both those guys. So is that what you spend a lot of time kind of in your free time drawing up,
No.
things to do or get excited about how good they can be together?
Yeah, I do get excited about it, but until we see them on the field and see how 11 all can fit together, anything that we might want to draw up, we've probably already drawn up in the past. But I'm just excited to see them play, and the X's and O's will take care of itself.
Who are your backups there? You lost a couple backups, Shaq Barrett, Shane Ray. Who do you got in mind as the backup?
It's wide open. Wide open.
When you look at this year's draft class, people are talking about a quarterback who's 5'10", might go number one. You have a pass rusher who ran a 4.40. You got a wide receiver in DK Metcalf who looks like a linebacker. Is the idea of positional prototypes as players get more fit and times are changing, is the idea of like the prototype for a certain position sort of falling by the wayside as teams get more open-minded about who can play at what spot?
In some areas, but not at some positions, but not others. I mean, I still think you need to meet minimal size, speed requirements at certain positions that other ones don't. You can't have a slow corner. He has to have minimal speed, whatever. Now you place whatever that speed is, but he's got to be able to run. The difference with quarterback is he's got the ball in his hand every play, so you can tailor around him to meet his talents and design things that he's good at. Whereas the other positions got to still block certain people. They got to be able to pass rush against certain people. They got to cover people. And there's minimal physical traits that players must possess to do that. And I don't think that will ever change. There's very few short defensive linemen that have success in the league. Now, immediately you'll think of Aaron Donald. He's special. There's not a lot of Aaron Donalds. The guy in Atlanta, Jarrett, he's really a good player. But there's not a lot of them. So when you pick outside or below those minimums, you better know what you're getting.
Because you've been so many places, the number of coaches that run practices and run their week a certain way, are you picking and choosing as you're, like cherry picking from each of the stops you've been at to say, I want to do this way, or I want to do things on this day this way? Have you started to lay all that out?
Yeah, and it's more so, obviously a lot of practices will look the same no matter where you've been. But there's always been some things I wanted to do that I thought should have been done that weren't done, and now I get to do them.
Can you share any examples?
Not yet. Not yet.
Are you a reader?
No.
What about TV? You spend free time any TV shows or movies?
No, I don't have shows. I like information. So if I'm watching TV, I'm watching one of the sports channels, or I'm watching CNN or news. I like to know what's going on in the world. But I can't tell you the last TV show that I religiously watched. Not Seinfeld. I like Friends. I used to watch a lot of Friends shows with my daughter, reruns.
They're still on.
Yeah.
I saw the pilot yesterday. It was literally on the very first one.
I'd like to have some of those royalties.
Oh, no kidding.
How much do owners matter? I mean, if we look at the NFL teams, it's about coaching, it's about the quarterback, basically. How much does owners matter in your experience?
They do matter. They set the tempo for the organization. Now, all 32 teams are different. Jerry Jones is not only the owner, he's the general manager. In Chicago, it's a traditional ownership situation with the McCaskey family. They come in there's winning ways to do it, but I think the ownership, if they're not a hands-on, pseudo general manager, then they need to be supportive and let the people they've hired to do their jobs with support, but keep them well informed of what's going on.
What have you heard about Pat Bowlen?
Yeah, well, I knew a little bit about him from the outside looking in over the years and always heard great things. And then after being on board quickly, it was easy to see how much he was held in high esteem here, both within the organization and outside the organization. And, I'm disappointed that I won't get to get to know the true Pat Bowlen.
With the GM-coach relationship, it's obviously really important this time of year, and you're getting into your draft stuff. You said, and John's talking about when y'all get back, you're going to get going with that. But in season, I know you can't predict the future, but with all the places you've been, how much do you see the GM-coach relationship affecting the week-to-week and game plan? And anything specific, game, but philosophical stuff.
Well, I just think it's important to, from my perspective, to keep John abreast of what we're doing. Not the total nuts and bolts of the X's and O's, but give him a general feel for what we're thinking, and give him a general feel for who we're playing, why we're playing, or who we're not playing and why we're not playing them, just so there's no surprises. And to, be honest with you, search out his perspective on stuff. John, besides being a very knowledgeable football guy as a general manager with all his playing experience, he's a valuable resource. So, and it'd be remiss on my part not to use him as a resource.
Talked a lot about Sam Mills and what he means to you. What are some other players that kind of set a standard?
Wow, lots of them. Ricky Jackson, those 4 linebackers we had in New Orleans, obviously. That was both a blessing and a curse, but I look at it as a blessing. So from an early age in the NFL, the bar was set high to what good linebacker play looks like. So I've always been searching for it, and sometimes, tick off general managers when I tell them they're not bringing in good enough players for those positions because the standard is high. So, and then, just this past year in Chicago, great players with Khalil Mack, Roquan Smith, Danny Trevathan, Akeem Hicks, Eddie Goldman, all of our guys in the secondary, So, I've got a vision, a very recent vision of what it needs to look like. So that helps.
So you talk about what it needs to look like. Danny, we obviously saw him in Denver for a bunch of years, was fast. Roquan may even be faster. Right now, the linebackers you have on your roster are very short tacklers, but certainly aren't as straight up fast as those guys. So if you don't get super fast inside linebackers, how much does that change what you want to do?
It doesn't change. I mean, Navarro Bowman at his prime with us in San Francisco, he was a 4'7" linebacker when he came out, but he had great instincts, great know-how, great feel. So maybe we're going to be playing with players more like that. So, we just got to figure out a way to get it done. A good carpenter doesn't blame his tools. He just finds a way to get the thing built. So we'll just try and do our best.
How are you going to work with Scangarello as far as just all offensive, not even game day, setting all up, training camp, everyday communication?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we've already been communicating and, tell them things that I want to see in the offense, how we're going to handle situations that come up in the game. Because most of your game day situation stuff, 90% of it involves when you have the ball, when you're on offense versus on defense. So we need to be hand in hand on all that stuff.
Tell them, hey, we're 4 down territory here.
Everything.
Play calling.
All that.
Your old boss, John Fox, I remember talking to him one time about the idea of defensive coaches calling the defensive head coaches calling the defense is a challenge because of the tempo and the pace of play. So sort of what Mike was talking about with Rich, are you concerned at all that even when you say, yeah, we need to go 4 down territory here, slow it down, just because the way the game's going to play out and you're having to focus on whatever defensive adjustments you need to make, it's going to be, I don't say potentially disastrous, but could cause some issues?
No, because I have confidence in our defensive assistants, and a couple of them I've worked with extensively, and and I've worked with Reggie Herring in the past. These guys are going to know what we want, what we need, and I'll tell them what we want, what we need to do in between series if I can't go over there and do it myself. So I got good confidence in our position coaches to get that done.
How involved have you been, if at any, with special teams? Is that one aspect that you got to bone up on, maybe more than the others?
Maybe a little bit, but I'm capable.
Kind of back to what I was saying as far as your in-game stuff, because you've been in the booth so long, you weren't necessarily in your players' face anyway to tell you had to communicate through your
Exactly.
defensive coaches on the field. So in
Yeah.
that regard, I guess you're a little ahead of the curve.
Exactly. I would always tell the coaches what they need to go over with the players. I very seldom, if ever, talk to the player directly during a game. You know, I a few times got on the phone, but hardly ever. So yeah, I'm used to the assistant coaches carrying out the adjustments and what needs to be told to the players in between series. It's the way I've always done it.
How would that change operationally from the defensive standpoint? I mean, obviously, the offense would have to call from a defensive coordinator's position. How do you see that?
Why is that being talked about?
It's just an idea that I throw around my head every once in a while because people are talking about pace of play being slow, the audience being disengaged, like that.
It wouldn't affect. It would have more of an effect on the offensive coaches than the defensive coaches, because we have to go at the pace that they choose to go at. So if they're snapping the ball with 20 seconds left on the play clock, we got to be ready. If they're snapping it with 10, 5 or less, we got to be ready. So I think it would have more of an impact on the offensive coaches than defensive coaches, because we're used to reacting to what they're doing.
If a proposal went through where you could challenge...
If what?
If a proposal went through where you could challenge non-calls, especially as a defensive coach, how concerned would you be about the frame-by-frame review of something like whether there's a material restriction on a receiver for a DPI?
Yeah, those are all the things that have to be worked out. I think frame-by-frame or slow motion is good for, 2 feet in bounds, catch, no catch, fumble, no fumble, all that stuff.
Objective stuff.
But I don't think frame-by-frame should be used in officiating for if they ever want to review OPI, DPI, or anything else along those lines. I don't think it should be slow-mo or frame-by-frame.
Why?
Because I just think at some point, in slow-mo, this will look like that.
Well, I've heard people say that that's the reason you don't want to see pass interference change from a spot foul to 15 yards, because the guys at this level are so good that even if they know they're beat, they'll figure out a way to throw off the receiver, and it's just 15 yards versus a 50-yard penalty or a touchdown.
Yeah, I mean, they've talked long and hard enough about that over the years. It will always be a spot foul in the NFL, so just forget about that. I don't think so.
There seems to be this kind of mentality among some teams that the younger the coach, the more innovative the offense will be. Do you feel like there's any truth behind that, or do you feel like experience plays more of a factor?
I just don't think age plays a role in any of that. There's some great innovative minds that are older, and there's some that are younger. That's a stereotype right there.
How much do you get involved in the planning of the offense when it's going?
I do get involved and will be involved. Maybe not to the point where I'm talking to the Mike Munchak about his steps of the old lineman and stuff. But what we're trying to accomplish offensively and our overall philosophy and the way we go about it, running the ball, passing the ball, I'll be involved in.
Is that because it complements the defense, or just because as you've thought about being a head coach, you'd like offense to be sort of run a certain way?
I think it's all of that. I think, from defending NFL offenses for 30-some years, you have a feel about what's good and what isn't, what's hard to defend, what isn't, what could be hard to defend and what isn't. And I think I would be remiss if I don't relay that to our guys. Also, you know, you have to have a plan as a team of how you're going to win a game. You can't just be, okay, you guys go over here, score as many points and get as many yards as you can, and we go over here and we'll try and stop them. You know, we have to have a common way that we're going to win the game, not just win the stat battle. So that's a big part of it.
Why is that scheme so difficult to defend?
Which
Rich
one?
is going to run.
Because we try and go to the extreme of making run and pass look the same for the first couple seconds of the down. So there's the the indecision of the defense of, is it a run or a pass? And that's so fundamental that some people forget about that.
Some unique things to it too, just in terms of like the quarterback turning his back to the line of scrimmage.
Correct. Right.
And speaking to Rich, because I've asked you about your excitement level, he's getting this opportunity for the first time. Can you sense where his enthusiasm is for this opportunity?
Oh, it's through the roof. He's excited. And I think he's excited for a couple reasons. One, for the opportunity. And two, he's excited about the coaches we've been able to put together that he's working with. I think we have a very high-quality offensive staff. And three, I think, with some of the additions we've added since the end of the season player-wise, and we got another opportunity here next month to maybe add players, he's excited on all levels.
This current generation of tight ends, more athletic players, a lot of ways. What kind of problems they cause defenses now that maybe they didn't a couple generations ago?
Well, you said it. They're some of these tight ends are just big receivers. They're not tight ends in the truest sense of the word. And others are more traditional tight ends, So the tight end position's unique. Everybody's searching for the all-around blocker, receiver, all that stuff, but there's very few of those to go around. So you got to manufacture your tight end position, and sometimes it takes a couple guys to do that.
What do you think of the tight ends that are...
Who? Yeah, I don't know about ever, but in the last 10 years for sure. And he was one of the few guys that could do the inline blocking, could do all the traditional tight end routes from an inline position, but yet he could go split out like a receiver and run some routes as a receiver. But his biggest thing was he was so big, so good catching the ball in unusual spots, and he had a great quarterback throwing it to him, that he was a tough guy to defend.
Is there anybody that you would put in that category?
Ozzie Newsome?
Yeah.
Ozzie in his day was the measuring stick. I coached against Ozzie his last couple years in the league. Ozzie wasn't as big, obviously, but nobody was as big back then. Ozzie was done playing, I think, in 88 or 89. You got to give me some other names. Tony Gonzalez was a much better blocker than people gave him credit for, especially the first 10 or so years of his career. Yeah, great tight end. Shannon Sharp was more of a receiver than a total blocker, but he was competitive.
Do you remember back as far as
No.
What was it like on the hiring trend recently for head coaches? Seems like everybody wants to find the next Sean McVay. Do you feel that defensive coaches are at a disadvantage from that standpoint?
Well, just by the facts, they are. Because you alluded, there's more offensive coaches getting hired. But I don't see them as a disadvantage for doing a good job, But, it all goes back to the quarterback.
Do you think this is something that's here to stay or kind of a trend?
No, it's a trend. The football is a trending sport. Always has been, always will. Probably the most successful head coaches over time, going back to the 60s and 70s, were defensive coaches. So it'll get back there someday.
Do you think the Super Bowl
I don't know about validate. I mean, I remember when the Rams and Chiefs had that, what was it, 54-51 game this year, and a couple other high-scoring games were around the same time. And at my weekly press conference in Chicago, I got hit with all that. And is this the way of football is going? And I told them no. And then we played the Rams, I don't know how long after that, and we beat them 15-6. And 3 of those points, they got the ball on the 5-yard line to start. So I went in and asked them all if that was the new trend.
Hey Vic, what was it?
This year's attacking. We've got John's talking about picking up a little bit. How much expertise do you have in being able to help them pick that correctly up the ball? Maybe, as a defensive coordinator, for lack of a better term, scary.
No, I do think it's another lens to look at a quarterback from. You know, most of the evaluators of quarterbacks are looking at it from the lens of offense, you know, and I'm looking at it looking this way. So it does give, I think, another perspective that should be utilized.
Nick, so you're going to be a big part of all that.
Yeah, I'll be a part of it. I don't know if you should throw the word big in there, but I'll be a part of it.
Well, last one, Ben. Thank you. What was it like the game plan against Rob Gronkowski, especially this last year?
Well, you knew he was a guy you had to deal with. Brady loved throwing to him. They had good karma between them. And he's such a talented guy with his size and catch radius that, you know, he's been that guy for many years now that you had to deal with. It wasn't just this year.